Hola, buenos dias, mis amigos. Hello and good morning, my friends. I am sitting in my hotel room in Vigo. Today is a rest day for me. A couple days ago, I shared with you that I was having a rest day in Bayona. So yes, it was walk, rest day, walk yesterday, rest day today. And it wasn't initially supposed to be that way, yet if you know me, and I've shared this, I do believe everything happens exactly the way that it's supposed to. So because of the way the hotel previous to Bayona was acting, I think I used the word hounding me, and because I didn't have that confirmed and already prepaid, nor did I have the next day prepaid, I was able to cancel both of those reservations and then make one longer journey to Bayona, which then gave me a rest day the second day. And then I walked again yesterday to Vigo, and today was initially meant to be a rest day. It's the last rest day I have before I make it to Santiago, and my remaining days are, aside from one of them, are pretty short. So tomorrow's walk is only about 8.5 miles. The next day is about 6 miles. The day after that is about 8 miles. And then the fourth day is potentially one of the most challenging I will have on the entire walk. If I, and let's say this, it's also the beginning of the spiritual variant. So this point, this part of the walk is from Pontevedra to Armenteria. I don't know how you say that. Armenteria. And at that point in Pontevedra, either you go, let's say, east towards Santiago, or you go northwest, or it's actually southwest first and then north and up to Armenteria, which is the spiritual variant. So it'll be interesting to see. I've been told that the majority of people, because they don't want to add on another day or two, will go straight to Santiago, and I will be cutting off. And so it's a distinct, what I've read and what I've been told is that there's a distinct cut off where either you go right or you go left. And a lot of times it's, a solo person going left, and that'll be perfect because one thing that I know for certain now is that I am meant to do my own path, and that I am not meant to go with the flow. I am not meant to follow the pack and do what the majority of other people are doing. I'm meant to do what feels right to me. And what's really interesting is my small self, my limited belief self, had I known about the challenge, also known as opportunity for me to prove to myself that I can do it, had I known what this day, not today, but this day that I'm talking about where it splits, had I known, I may not have done it. And I share that candidly because I think it's important to share candidly. I think that is one of my gifts, is sharing honestly and candidly, and that sometimes it's okay to not know and make the decision from the not knowing, because what's happened in the meantime is I know that I can do this day now. I would, if I made the decision back then, I would have made it in the not knowing that I could do it. I made the decision without the full knowing of it, right? So often we think that we need all of the answers in order to make the decision. What if you don't need all of the answers? What if you just need the knowing and the why and the going, right? And trusting that who you are going to become in the process will get you through it. And that's what I did. I trusted, as I laid out this map, as I laid out my plan, that I will be able to handle what comes my way. And that's been working out. So this day, that I'm talking about is about 14 miles and it's primarily uphill. Is it going to be easy? Maybe not. Can I do it? Absolutely. And what's even more than that is it's the reward of proving to myself that I can do it and recognizing like this is amazing what you're able to do, and also the knowing that it is going to be truly the path less traveled. I'm excited about that and what's to come on it, because it's part of the spiritual variant, that it is a spectacular, even more meaningful connection to the Camino. And what I've found is that for many people, and my husband said this in such a perfect way. So the way that he shared this as we talk about it. So when I first decided to do the Camino, I knew that I was supposed to do it because of the spiritual component to it. And I was under the assumption, expectation that the majority of people would be out here doing it for the spiritual component of it. And I was wrong, and that's okay. It's been an interesting, I'm not sure what the word is that is trying to drop in that I'm not pulling right now. It's been an interesting realization that it gets to be their journey. It doesn't have to be spiritual. And also mine, for me, is very spiritual. I picked this specifically because of the spiritual components attached to it. I picked adding on the spiritual variant because specifically that is part of it includes a boat ride. And that boat ride is specifically the boat ride that St. James's body was transported on in order to get to Santiago. And along that path, along that journey, apparently there are going to be many crosses that I will get to see, that if you're walking into Santiago, you miss that because you're missing part of the spiritual variant, which I'm really excited about. And so what I am really embracing is this knowing that it gets to be my path and my way, and also it gets to be your path and your way. And part of my journey and part of my work is to show you my point of view, not to force it on you, but to bring it forward so that potentially you see something in a new way, in a new light, in a way that maybe hasn't been presented before. So that's why I believe I'm meant to bring up some of these conversations that are interesting, fascinating, sometimes candidly a little annoying, and that's okay. So that's a lot to unpack. All of that to say, so I posted that I was going to share about answering 3 questions. I'm going to share about collecting stamps. And there was a third one that I can't remember right now, which is fine. So let's talk about the 3 questions first. When I first learned about the Camino, or when I started researching it and planning my trip rather, I'd heard somewhere that the Camino gives you 3 things if you're open to exploring it. And what's interesting is I could have said it 5 things and had 5 different things and I would have found those. But these are the 3 things that I came into it knowing the Camino would give me. First, the Camino will give you a lesson or something that you need to learn, something that you need to know. Second, the Camino will give you something for you to find. It will help you finally be able to release something for good and let it go. And third, the Camino will help you remember something. And barring any significant changes, I feel like I have all 3 of those. And I'm at the point, so if you've ever done a puzzle, right? You've done a puzzle before. We all start with the edges, don't we? Because we know that all you need to find is a straight edge. And we make the outside part of our puzzle, right? So you find a straight edge, you get the edges put together, and then you find some pieces, right? And then there's a point where it's a little bit frustrating because there's so many pieces you're not quite sure where to begin. You start getting, like, slowly getting some pieces in there. And then at some point you get like a handful of pieces and it goes boom, 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 and it starts dropping in, and you can start to see the puzzle. And then as the clarity continues to come in, you get a little, a little bit more and a little bit more. And then before you know it, you have the entire puzzle, right? I feel like I'm at this point where I can see the picture, and there's just a few more days, a few more pieces that are going to fall in that gives it complete clarity. So that's where I'm feeling I'm at right now with those 3 questions and the answers. I feel like I have it. But I'm open to, I'm open to even further clarity and dialing it in even deeper. So I'm really excited about that. It's fun to witness, and it's fun to be in a place of exploring that and letting that come forward, while also recognizing that that is not everyone's journey. I don't claim to know everyone's journey. I feel like I've witnessed enough to know, though, that for many, this is not a spiritual journey. My husband, as we've been talking about this, he said, I wonder if for a lot of people, particularly from Europe, because it's an easier trip for them, if for them it is more focused on, let's say, sport, because these are dedicated trails, it's a dedicated path, and it's, something, a bit of a holiday for them to come and do this, a bit of a physical fitness holiday for them. So they're not necessarily in it for the journey per se. They're in it more for the physical challenge or for the physical opportunity with a guided path in the meantime. So really more for sport. And what's interesting is I read something last night, actually, after we got off the call, that kind of echoed that it has become more of a sport and less of a spiritual journey. So they're seeing the numbers raised, but not necessarily because it's a spiritual pilgrimage. Now, that being said, for many, the sport still is collecting stamps. That's part of the sport. So let me tell you about collecting stamps. In Vigo is about the 100K mark. And on any of the routes, as long as you do 100K or more, you can collect at the end what's known as a credential. It's your certificate. Think of this like a badge of honor that you've done it, right? As long as you've been collecting 2 stamps every day, starting at the 100K mark. If you've started earlier, like I did, my understanding is as long as you collect at least 1 stamp a day, then they can track your path even more. And I'm not sure if I will qualify. I think I qualify for the long distance as well, because I started in Porto, which on this path, there aren't that many people, or not Porto, I'm sorry, because I started in Lisbon. There aren't that many people that started in Lisbon, because that's almost 800 kilometers, which is 8 times, right? Let's say even 7.5 times. I don't remember the numbers, but I want to say I remember seeing it was 790 kilometers, give or take. It's almost 8 times what's required in order to do the certificate. And so at some point, there's also a distance certificate that I think I will qualify for. So I've been collecting stamps every day since Lisbon, since I started. And I think I only have 1 day where I only have 1. Every other day has at least 2 and some 3 stamps. Now, for me, collecting stamps means collecting stories. It means collecting memories. It means even though I'm only in your town for a moment, I'm going to do the best I can to have at least a baby impact, right? And so part of what has been coming up for me is witnessing people who are passing through simply for the stamp and not for the memory or the relationship or an opportunity to thank all of these communities that have welcomed me, right? And I did a video yesterday as I was walking. I actually stopped in the forest, sat down, and did a whole video talking about collecting stamps, and then I deleted it because I was feeling, I didn't want it to feel judgy, and I was feeling a little guilty and a little ashamed because I didn't want it to come off as judging these other walkers because it gets to be their journey. Looking back now, I don't know that it was. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. What I do know is that I am meant to share my point of view, which is going to be different, potentially, than other points of view, in order to not force my point of view on you, but maybe give you another way to look at things, another way to see things. And so for me, collecting stamps, like I said, is really about collecting memories. It's about collecting moments. The majority of the stamps in my books, I could tell you a story behind it. And if today is day 29, I haven't collected any yet today, but if today, so let's say day 28, an average of 2 a day, that's 56 stamps. That's 56 moments, 56 stories, 56 lives that I could tell you about. And I've witnessed so many people walk in, open up their credential, their passport, flop it on the counter, and say, "You have a stamp?" They get a stamp and they walk out. And there's no relationship, there's no exchange, there's no honoring that this person has a business. And a lot of these businesses on the Camino, especially in the smaller villages, which I love so much, which is why I kept going back to the villages. A lot of these villages, a lot of these little stores, little shops, little coffee places, they count on us. And you know what? They should, because these villages, these communities are embracing us with open arms. They're creating paths for us. They're maintaining the paths for us. They're welcoming us. And if given half a chance, they want to learn about us. They want to know our stories. They want to be amazed, because most of these people in these small villages that own these little cafes and shops will never walk the Camino. For whatever reason, they don't have the means to do it. They can't get away for a week or 2 or 6 weeks or whatever it takes, you know? And so I find it, and I was feeling ashamed to say this, and I'm not now, I find it incredibly rude to walk in, demand a stamp, and walk out. I just think it's rude. And the owners of these shops, I can't pretend to know what they're thinking, but I've witnessed a number of times, because I've been in the middle of it and having a conversation with the owner when this has happened. The other day when I was in Bayona, where I got all of those delicious little pastries that I shared, the pastry owner, she and I were visiting, and we were talking about the pastries, and I was asking which one is her favorite, and I bought one of her favorite ones. And as we were visiting, a pilgrim walked in, and at this point, mind you, the pastry owner did not know that I was walking the Camino. I had not said anything about the Camino. I never do until the very end. I want there to be a conversation and a relationship, and what I've learned is I want to build that first, because then what's fascinating is when I ask if I can have their stamp, They're so excited to give it to me. So as I was visiting, my gosh, I'm emotional about this. As I was visiting with this pastry owner, a pilgrim walked in. She walked in the door was already open. She walked in and said, "You have a stamp?" In the middle of our conversation. And the pastry owner said, "See." And she looked back at me and we kept on our conversation. And the pilgrim stood there with her book open. We finished our conversation. We high-fived. The pastry owner has had her building had her company for 9 years. And I congratulated her. We high-fived and I asked her, "Te gusta?" which means, "Do you love it?" And she said, "Me gusta mucho." And she loves it very much. And it doesn't feel like work, she said, because she loves it so much. And so we had a really meaningful conversation. The pilgrim witnessed the majority of this conversation. The other pilgrim witnessed the majority of this conversation. And at the end, as I was paying, I said, "Sellos de Compostela." Sellos means stamp. And she said, "Sí, sí." And she got a big grin on her face. And I pulled out my Compostela and she stamped it. "Aquí, aquí," which means here. And so she was asking, "Here, do you want me to stamp it here?" And I said, "Sí, sí, perfecto." And as we did that, the other pilgrim came over and promptly put her passport on the counter. And the pastry gal stamped it and looked back at me and smiled. And the pilgrim walked out the door. Like, the exchange was so different. And I know it's because of the interaction. And I've witnessed that so many times. And because I was just like, oh gosh, it should not, I don't want to be another person that someone sees as, I don't know their perception, right? It's a guess. But I know that I want to be someone that they don't know that I am there for their stamp. I want them to know that they matter because of who they are, not because they have a stamp for my Compostela. And it boggles my mind. I don't understand. I just don't understand that. And what I realized is I don't need to understand it, that I'm going to share my point of view and I'm going to be okay with that and I'm going to be confident with it and I'm not going to have shame around or guilt around feeling so moved about the possibility of having an impact. For example, the day that I was flying out of MSP to come here, to go to Lisbon, I was sitting at the bar in the Delta Club and I think I had a gin and tonic and I was sitting at the bar and I was visiting with one of the bartenders. And person after person, so if you're in the Delta Sky Club, obviously the drinks are complimentary, right? Assuming you don't get one of their higher version drinks. And I would guess at least 90% of the people did not tip on a free drink, folks, on a free drink. How hard is it to hand over $1 on a free drink? And at one point when it was quiet, I asked the server, I'm like, does that drive you crazy that people come and get free drinks and they don't even tip? She came over and put her arms on put her elbows down and looked me like square in the face. And she said, "No, it used to, but it doesn't anymore because people like you outweigh it." Interesting. What's fascinating is yesterday on my walk, because I was thinking about the stamps and feeling guilty about the video that didn't get posted or that I took down because it's not about judging other pilgrims. It's just a perspective, right? And I don't know their journey. I just have witnessed it so many times. I came across a local who had a store, who spoke very good English, great English, in fact. Even though I'm practicing my Spanish, when I want to go deep in a conversation and they understand English, it's so much easier to use that. And so I asked if I can ask a candid question. And I shared with them my observation. And in so many words, she said the same thing. It used to bother me, but now I understand, because there are some pilgrims like you who make up for it. Hear me when I say, I know I don't get it right all the time. I know I don't. It's not about what I am doing or not doing. What I want us to hear and what I want to remember for myself is that we do have a chance to make an impact all the time, every single day. And the way that we do that, friends, I'm not saying you have to spend 20 minutes with these people. I'm not saying you have to go in and have a full conversation the way that I do. Or a couple days ago, I was in a restaurant and having breakfast, and the server, I told her that I was practicing my Spanish, and she said she wants to practice English. So she sat down next to me and asked me a few words. And then later I asked if she had a stamp for my Compostela, and she was so excited to give it to me. And then 5 other pilgrims in the restaurant walked up with their passport, stuck them out. They did not know that she had a stamp. But for her and I, we had a moment, right? And I pray that she felt seen. And I pray that as I go through these towns, that if pilgrim has become something that is, I don't know what it is. But I know I don't want to be lumped into a pile of people that just walk in with an expectation and they're not willing to give. Okay, so there's my collecting stamps rant. I will stop on that, but I'll show you what it means so you can see. All right. This is the initial one I got in Lisbon when I started. You can see I started in Lisbon. And then, oh my gosh, sorry about my nose. These are the stamps I've collected along the way. They all have dates on them. Do you remember a video of a cool, that side of the road place for pilgrims with the fruit, make a donation? It was like, and there was like that built-in prayer chapel, and that's that stamp. I could tell you stories about all of these. There's more on the back. So all of these stamps along the way. Cool, right? And then this one, there's a double here because this is the guy who, he's the guy that was at the chapel, and he had potatoes, and we were sitting there visiting. He's the one I think I shared with you about, who I asked him, he asked where I'm from, and I said the States, and I said, where are you from? And he said, aquí, which is here. And I said, aquí, here? And he said, yeah, see, here. And he pointed next door because that was his family home where he grew up. So he brought out the stamp, and he stamped it this time, and he was so frustrated because it didn't come out that he re-stamped it below. So I put a smile next to that one and then dated that one. So funny. All of those stamps. And so I ran out of room, which I knew I would. So I started a second one. I have to still fill it in. So this is my second one, and primarily I started it when I got into Spain. This is my stamp from last night. I need to actually date that one. Oh, I need to date that one too. So all of these have stories. They all have stories attached to them, and you can at the end, when you get to Santiago, you will show them this, and there are officials that will look at, trained officials that will look at your passport, and they will check your journey and make sure that you've met the qualifications, and then give you that credential. And what boggles my mind is, why would you? It doesn't matter. That question doesn't matter. Anyway, so there's my collecting stamps rant. That I may walk away from this conversation feeling a little bit vulnerable and feeling, I'm not going to walk away feeling guilty. I said what I said, and I mean it. I think there's a bigger opportunity here, and I know that I can't change the way a lot of people show up. What I do know is that I can continue showing up in a way that is meaningful and memorable for the people that I come in contact with, even though it's just a moment. Just a moment. I get that I'm not going to change their life forever, probably, but can I have an impact in the moment? And I think that is a really, really big piece. So I'm going to stop talking, because clearly I could keep going. This is what happens when I'm sitting rather than walking. I welcome your questions. I hope you have a beautiful day. I'm going to go explore, and I think I'm on my way to Mass. I decided I would take in, because it's a Sunday, I would take in a local cathedral and go attend their Mass, so that I can experience what that's like as well. So I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful morning, and I will talk to you soon. Happy Sunday, friends.